A luxury cruise ship carrying tourists across the Atlantic suddenly turns into a floating quarantine zone. Within weeks, passengers are evacuated in hazmat suits. 3 people die, and the cause traces back to a virus carried by rodents. The panic felt painfully familiar. For many people on board the MV Hantavirus cruise ship, the first warning signs looked harmless: fever, fatigue, headaches. Then breathing problems started appearing. Soon, health officials across multiple countries were tracking passengers who had already traveled home. The World Health Organization quickly stepped in, trying to calm fears before rumors exploded online. But one phrase kept spreading everywhere: another pandemic. This video is not just about the cruise ship outbreak. It is about the virus behind it, where it came from, why scientists take it seriously, and why one specific strain called the Andes virus changed how experts think about hantavirus forever. Before we go further, ask yourself this: if you were trapped on that ship after hearing about the first death, would you stay calm? Most people had never heard the word hantavirus before the outbreak made headlines. That changed overnight. But the virus itself is not new. In fact, scientists have been studying hantaviruses for decades. The name comes from the Hantan River in South Korea, where one strain was identified after soldiers became sick during the Korean War. Hantavirus is not one single virus. It is actually a family of viruses carried mainly by rodents. Different strains exist in different parts of the world. In Europe and Asia, some strains attack the kidneys. In North and South America, others attack the lungs. The most feared strain right now is the Andes virus, found mainly in Argentina and Chile. Unlike most hantaviruses, this version has shown signs of limited human-to-human transmission. That changed everything. In 2018, Argentina experienced an Andes virus outbreak linked to a single gathering. 34 confirmed infections, 11 deaths.
New case in
Health
downtown.
officials later traced
contacts.
many of the cases back to close personal contact between people. Avoid enclosed spaces contaminated by rodents, especially cabins, sheds, or abandoned buildings with droppings or nests. Here is what makes hantavirus so disturbing. You do not need to touch a rat to become infected. In many cases, people never even see the animal. Scientists say the virus spreads mainly through microscopic particles released from rodent urine, saliva, or droppings. Once those particles become airborne, humans can inhale them without realizing it. Imagine cleaning an old garage that has been abandoned for months. You sweep the floor. Dust rises into the air. But mixed inside that dust could be virus particles invisible to the eye. That is how outbreaks quietly begin. Most infections happen in rural environments: farms, cabins, forest areas, storage buildings, places where rodents can hide for long periods without disturbance. Scientists believe environmental conditions like heavy rainfall and warmer temperatures can increase rodent populations, raising the risk of outbreaks. For the average person, the danger feels distant, until it suddenly is not. If you ever clean rodent-infested areas, ventilate the space first and avoid dry sweeping. Hantavirus creates a strange contradiction. It is far deadlier than COVID-19 in many cases, but it spreads far less efficiently. COVID spread through casual interaction, a conversation, a cough, a crowded room. Hantavirus usually requires much closer exposure. That is why health experts continue stressing that it does not currently have pandemic potential. Still, the fatality rate terrifies scientists. Certain forms of hantavirus pulmonary syndrome carry mortality rates approaching 38%. Some kidney-related strains can be even deadlier. Few viruses kill this aggressively. The symptoms often begin like ordinary flu: fever, muscle aches, fatigue, headaches. But after several days, the condition can rapidly spiral into severe breathing difficulty as the lungs begin filling with fluid. Patients are frequently rushed into intensive care units where oxygen support becomes critical. That progression is one reason outbreaks generate so much fear. By the time victims realize something is seriously wrong, the virus may already be overwhelming the body. Never ignore severe breathing symptoms after possible rodent exposure. Seek medical attention immediately. In late 2018, health officials in Argentina faced an outbreak unlike anything they expected. It began quietly after a social gathering in Patagonia. One infected individual attended the event while unknowingly carrying the Andes strain of Hantavirus. Weeks later, dozens of people were sick. 11 died. Scientists studying the outbreak noticed something unusual. Many victims had no known contact with rodents at all. Instead, investigators traced infections through close personal interaction between humans. The virus had crossed a line. For decades, most hantaviruses were believed incapable of meaningful human transmission. Andes virus forced experts to reconsider that assumption. Although transmission remained limited and required prolonged close contact, the implications were enormous. Suddenly, the virus was no longer viewed only as an environmental threat. It became a monitoring priority for international health organizations. Researchers still debate exactly why Andes virus behaves differently from other strains. Some suspect unusually high viral loads in certain patients may create super spreader scenarios under rare conditions. The research here is still evolving. Understanding rare outbreaks early is critical before misinformation spreads faster than facts. If you are still watching, you are already seeing why hantavirus scares scientists far more than most people realize. Subscribe now because the next part explains why cruise ships became the perfect environment for this outbreak, and why health officials reacted so aggressively even when they said the global risk was low. Cruise ships create a unique kind of danger during outbreaks. Thousands of people share dining halls, air systems, narrow corridors, elevators, and cabins for weeks at a time. Once fear enters the environment, containment becomes extremely difficult. Back in 2020, the Diamond Princess became one of the most infamous COVID outbreaks in the world. More than 700 passengers became infected while trapped at sea. Public health experts never forgot that lesson. So when hantavirus cases appeared on board the MV Hondius, authorities moved fast. Passengers who had already disembarked were tracked across multiple countries, including the United Kingdom, South Africa, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. Nobody wanted another disaster at sea. The challenge was not just the virus itself, it was the incubation period. Some hantavirus symptoms can take up to 6 weeks to appear. That means infected individuals may travel internationally long before realizing they are sick. Even though experts insisted this was not COVID 2.0, memories of the pandemic made public anxiety explode online almost immediately. During any outbreak, early communication matters as much as medical treatment. The terrifying part about hantavirus is how ordinary the beginning feels. Victims often describe the first symptoms as a mild flu, tiredness, fever, body aches, nausea, the kind of illness many people would normally ignore. Then phase 2 begins. Patients suddenly struggle to breathe. Oxygen levels collapse. Fluid fills the lungs. Some victims require mechanical ventilation within hours of hospitalization. Doctors treating severe cases often move patients directly into intensive care units because the deterioration can happen incredibly fast. The body starts drowning from the inside. One scientist compared the progression to a switch flipping inside the immune system. The body reacts so aggressively that its own response contributes to the damage. In severe pulmonary cases, survival may depend on how quickly advanced respiratory support becomes available. There is currently no universally approved vaccine for hantavirus infections. Treatment mainly focuses on supportive care, oxygen therapy, ventilation, careful monitoring. In kidney-related forms, dialysis may also become necessary. Early diagnosis dramatically improves survival odds during severe respiratory infections. So could hantavirus ever become a true global pandemic? Right now, most experts say no. But the answer is more complicated than many headlines suggest. The main reason is transmission efficiency. Hantavirus simply does not spread between humans the same way influenza or coronaviruses do. Most strains still depend heavily on rodent exposure. Even Andes virus appears to require prolonged close contact rather than casual interaction. Still, scientists continue monitoring environmental changes very closely. Climate shifts, urban expansion, and growing contact between humans and wildlife may increase the opportunities for spillover events in the future. Viruses evolve when ecosystems destabilize. Some researchers worry that increased global travel creates new outbreak risks, even for rare diseases once confined to isolated regions. A virus no longer needs to spread efficiently to trigger international concern. It only needs one infected traveler boarding a plane or ship. That reality is changing how public health systems prepare for future outbreaks after the lessons learned from COVID-19. Monitoring emerging diseases early remains humanity's strongest defense. One of the biggest myths about hantavirus is that it spreads easily through the air like COVID. That is false. Most infections still come directly from rodent contamination. Another misconception is that every case becomes fatal. While the mortality rate can be frighteningly high, many patients survive with rapid medical intervention. There is also confusion around where the virus exists. Many people assume hantavirus only affects remote regions. In reality, cases have appeared across North and South America, Europe, and Asia for decades. The difference is that outbreaks usually remain small and isolated. Rare does not mean impossible. Fear spreads faster when information is incomplete. That is exactly what happened during the cruise ship outbreak. Social media posts immediately compared the situation to the early days of COVID. Some users claimed governments were hiding the next pandemic. Health officials pushed back hard against those narratives, emphasizing that the global public risk remained low. The challenge today is balancing caution with realism. Panic helps nobody. Ignoring real threats helps nobody either. Always verify outbreak claims through trusted medical and public health sources. Scientists are now watching hantavirus more carefully than ever before, not because they believe a global pandemic is imminent, but because rare viruses have a habit of revealing weaknesses in public health systems. Researchers continue studying why Andes virus behaves differently from other hantavirus strains. Some teams are exploring antiviral treatments. Others are investigating possible vaccines, though funding for rare diseases often remains limited compared to larger global threats. At the same time, environmental researchers warn that changing climate conditions could increase rodent populations in certain regions during the next decade. More rodents means more opportunities for human exposure. The next outbreak may begin silently. That is the unsettling truth behind hantavirus. It is not the next COVID. It is not spreading uncontrollably across cities. But it is real. It is deadly. And under the wrong conditions, it can move faster than most people expect. The cruise ship outbreak reminded the world of something uncomfortable. Dangerous viruses do not always arrive with warning sirens. Sometimes they arrive quietly, hidden inside dust particles nobody notices until it is already too late. Not professional advice. Consult a qualified expert as needed.